educate, but be able to inspire and also give you steps. And that's what we're doing today. So today we're delighted to have with us Quentin Strode, who is the Chief Operating Officer of New Community Investments. And he's taking time to speak with us today. So if you're wondering what that title is, that's a big title. And he's taking time to speak with us on raising capital and funds for your new business. So before we begin, I'd like to recognize Judy Fox, who's with the Business and Entrepreneurship Regional. She was the Regional Director of Business and Entrepreneurship for the California Community Colleges. She's been really supportive of our programs and getting the word out as well. So we appreciate her. And next, I'd also like to recognize Kenny Turner, who's the Director of National Post-Secondary and Alumni Programs at NIFTY. And if you don't know what NIFTY is, NIFTY stands for Network for Teaching Entrepreneurship. So right up your alley for those who are entrepreneurs or budding entrepreneurs. Kenny helped put our program together today. So we're grateful for that. And with that, I'd like to hand it over to Kenny and then on to Quentin as well.
All right. Hello, everyone. Great to be here. Thank you so much, Yoon. And I want to acknowledge Melissa, too, who's on the call with us. Both of them have been phenomenal from El Camino College and have just been instrumental in making this, as well as the additional workshop next week that hopefully all of you can join us for that as well. So my name is Kenny Turner. I am with an organization called the Network for Teaching Entrepreneurship. We'll put it in the chat for you in just a sec. You can check out the website on your own. We also have a free resource for entrepreneurs that I'll share in the chat for you as well. So if you're a budding entrepreneur or you're an entrepreneur trying to grow and go to the next level, this resource will help you out. So we'll share that resource as well for you. The Network for Teaching Entrepreneurship looks to partner with organizations like El Camino College and other organizations that are pushing an entrepreneurial mindset in not only in the business startup, but you can apply in your studies, you can apply in the world of work, you can apply to life. So today's workshop and webinar, we're excited about because it will give you some practical steps on how to get started in your business. Everyone has that major question. Where do I go to get the money to get my business started? And so like you and like many of us, we have that question and we want it answered like today. So before we get started, I'm going to actually share my screen in just a second. I want to give you guys a couple resources. So one, and I'll share my screen. You can use this particular link that I'm going to share with you in just a sec to help you out as you follow along today. Let me just share this with you real quick. This is a quick tool that I'm going to just kind of give you just some quick points on before our guest speaker comes up, because then you'll be able to utilize this, hopefully, to help you frame some thoughts, some questions. This is a quick kind of resource that you can use. One sec, let me just get that unplugged real quick. This is a quick resource for you that you can use, and it's called the Applicant Tool /Viral Tool. And what this tool is to kind of give you a signal as to whether or not you are investment ready. And hopefully everybody can see my screen. You can see just a little bit of the flow of what we're going to do today. And this particular tool that was created by an organization called Village Capital, I placed the link in there for you. You can enter that link as an entrepreneur and say, hey, I'm an entrepreneur. It'll take you through a really quick, easy assessment when you do that. And it's going to give you just a quick, like, where are you really at with your business? Like, where are you at? Are you really, are you ready for an investment? And if so, what type? Have you explored all types of investments that you can start out, or do you need a business loan right now? So it's a really fun tool to use. If you can print out the visual, I would recommend using it so you can get an idea as to which level you're on. And the levels help you identify some milestones for you and your business. So as you're thinking about, hey, I want to get this business started, I want to grow my business, etc., you get to identify what level you're on and also how many milestones you really need to complete to get ready for investment. And so it prints out something that looks like this. Again, it's kind of, once you do the assessment, it will help you explain, it'll help show you how this works. But the key thing is this, if you look to the right, depending on your level, so in this example, this business is on actually a level 3, trying to get to a level 4 as they complete the milestones in the middle. And so on the right-hand side, this is probably one of the most valuable tools for it, is that it'll tell you some strategies you can use, and this is some terminology that you'll hear Quentin go through a little bit during his presentation. Are you ready for venture capitalists? You know, many of you have heard that term. Are you even, you know, do we know what that is? And are you ready for that? Or maybe you just need an angel investor. You might have heard that term. What's the difference between a venture capitalist and an angel investor? Or maybe you just need some crowdsourcing or crowdfunding to get your business off the ground, et cetera. Maybe you can ask friends and family, right? And so the assessment from Abaca and from Village Capital will help you kind of make some of those, you know, get a visual on that and make that decision. You'll be able to use that as a self kind of assessment tool for yourself. So the last thing I just want you, if you can take a look at this as well, you can copy down that link there, abaca.app/milestone plan. It'll actually give you a plan or a template on how to achieve your milestones in order to get investment ready. All right. So a lot of the questions and a lot of the ideas that'll be shared today, this will give you just some framework, something that you can work on for your own business as you take notes and listen to what Mr. Strode will talk about today. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over, and we're going to hand it over to an expert, you know, definitely a friend in the work. Quentin and I have been working together for, I don't know how long, Quentin, maybe 3-4 years at this point.
About 4 years.
Yep. And you know, I've seen Quentin just masterfully talk through this concept, which can be so difficult for so many people, and make it relevant for the audience and connect. So I'm gonna stop share. And Quentin, I'll pull up your PowerPoint. But without further ado, I'd like to introduce Quentin Strode, CEO, COO of New Economics for Women. So Quentin, without further ado, I hand it over to you.
Yeah, all my titles are kind of complicated, but while he's pulling up the presentation, I'll give you guys a little bit of my background. I started out as a banker out of college at a bank called First Interstate Bank years ago, about 30 plus years ago. Worked in branches, worked in small business, actually became an SBA specialist at the bank. And as my career started to grow, I did things like become the first multicultural marketing executive in the entire banking industry at Bank of America, where I basically managed a $15 million effort to try to raise awareness about banking and about Bank of America in ethnic communities. My last job at B of A, I was the executive running retail and small business in Texas and the Midwest. And I did that for several years. That was the largest retail small business operation in the entire company. I left the bank in 2008, was recruited to US Bank and did a similar job at US Bank, running the states of Washington and Oregon. A few years ago, about 5 years ago, I decided to retire, and was too young to retire, so I wanted to work on a passion project. And over the years, I noticed that people who generated real wealth tended to be entrepreneurs. So I wanted to figure out a way to create an entrepreneur educational type of program that we could take to underrepresented communities. And a part of doing that, we would focus on delivering our services in partnership with community colleges. So, you know, a big part of my work for the last 5 years has been working with community colleges and just working in underserved, underutilized, underrepresented communities across LA. We will launch 4 incubators next year in partnership with community colleges, and we will launch an incubator in September in partnership with University of La Verne, a regional university located in the La Verne, Glendora area. So with all of that being said, let's jump into the presentation. It's about 19 slides. I probably won't make it through all 19 slides, but I will get through the high points in a way that you guys hopefully will spur some questions. I won't get into venture capital a lot, but I will just touch on it. And I'll kind of keep the conversation focused on friends and family, crowdfunding, CDFI funding, and possibly the SBA. Kenny, can you blow that up a little bit for me? Let me change my view. That may help.
I have it maxed out on my screen for the PDF.
All right, let's go to the next slide. So as we hop in, kind of the purpose of the workshop is to help you guys get your heads around what it takes to position yourself for funding to get your business started. Overall, you should be thinking about, number one, if you're starting up something, try to figure out a way to start out something that you're really, really passionate about. One thing that I learned from business people over the years is if you're passionate about it, with as much time and work you're going to put into your business, if you really have a passion for it, it's not work. It's really what drives you, in a different way. And so, first off, try to decide on something that you can be really, really passionate about. The people who start up businesses just for the money or the opportunity to make money are normally the ones that fail. So, if you can find a way to bring your passion, whether that is you're creating a product that is something new that would be beneficial for humanity, or you're doing something that is beneficial for your community. Those are the types of businesses that people are creating and being successful at. The other thing is, if you're thinking about creating a niche, or figuring out a way to create a business or a service that isn't being fulfilled right now with existing businesses that are in the market, those businesses also become pretty special and become successful. And I'll use the example of Ring doorbells and Ring cameras and things of that nature. For the most part, most people don't know that Ring started in a garage in Santa Monica, and they were ultimately incubated in one of the tech incubators in Santa Monica, and they launched. Had a hard time raising money, and but they finally started to gain some traction. And they moved that business in a way that it was sold several years ago to Amazon for several $1 billion. So a business that started in a garage in Santa Monica, the guys who created it, are now billionaires because of, their passion for something that was missing, and they were able to drive it. And I'll give you another example. Phil Knight, most of you guys know Nike and wear Nikes and things of that nature. Phil Knight started Nike out of the trunk of his car using a waffle iron and rubber. And he basically crafted running shoes using a waffle iron and rubber. Had a great idea, did all the research that he needed to make his business successful, and couldn't get a loan. Actually, one of my former bosses, his claim to fame was he turned Phil Knight down on his first loan, which, to me is kind of crazy when you think about the success of Nike today. But that's his claim to fame. He didn't think Phil was ready for funding and didn't get it. Phil ultimately went to Japan and got money to start up his business with some help from his family and friends. Got it going, and really the rest is history. Now he's given multi-millions of dollars a year away through his foundation and things of that nature. Let's go to the next slide.
I mean, Q, this is phenomenal because a lot of those key points and key brands, right, that we use every day, right, are so important to the convo. To help us out, I have a little poll. I'm going to ask the audience just to fill out for us, so you can get a sense as to how many people have actually, or maybe either heavily started thinking about a business, or maybe they're at the beginning stages and still in ideation. So, sure. So if you, I'm going to launch this poll. If you guys can help us out, Here you go. I don't know if you guys can see the poll on the screen there, but fill that out for us. How many of you, have you actually started a business or actively looking to start a business? Got a lot of yeses, Q, a lot of yeses, all right. A lot more of you can fill it out. Let's get a little bit more. Oh, all right, poll result. Let's see, hold on one second. Let's try that again. Do me a favor one more time. Let's get that vote again. Something happened with the poll. It closed too quickly. So can you guys just vote? There you go. There you go. Okay, a lot more votes in there. All right. Cool. You got a few more seconds. We got a good amount though that said. So about 74% of you, and I'll in the close, there we go. We got one more. There we go. All right. So share the results just so everyone can see. So about 75% of you said, yes, I've started my business or I'm actively looking to start. So Q, just so you can get a sense as to who's in the room and, you know, how this conversation might be helpful to them. So, all right.
So 75% is a good number. As we get into the Q&A, you know, we'll get to talk about some of the things that that you're focused on doing and really what we can do to help you, to support you to get to your goal of raising money for that business. And I'll probably offer something up at the end that may be a little bit intriguing to everybody on the phone. So we'll see. I know Judy Fox is on the phone. Hey, Judy, glad you're on the phone. And you know, we'll go from there. How do I take the poll then? Oh, there it is. Cool. So entrepreneurs, use your creative talents to make it happen. Whether you're a young person who's coming out of college and not wanting to kind of take the traditional route and go to work for, you know, a company or a corporation, or whether you're a person who's spent 30 years in industry and you have real skills, but you're retiring and you don't want to necessarily, you know, just sit around and travel. Starting up a business is a good way to do things. And again, back to what I said earlier, the real wealth in this country that's generated typically is generated with folks who are running small businesses. Kenny, let's go to the next slide. Kind of hit on that. Think about your short-term needs. The needs, you know, from the standpoint of financing your business after you've decided how much money you need to get your business going. And I would recommend that you go through a process of, at a minimum, building a framework for a business plan. That's going to be consistent, or you're going to hear a consistent conversation like that anywhere you go. So at El Camino College, you guys have an SBDC, which is an SBA sanctioned organization that helps people who are in growth stages, but also helps startups as well. Go in there and have a conversation with them about business planning. If you download a business plan online, one of the best ones is the one from the SBA. Of all things, the SBA does a few things that are really, really good. And one of the things that they do that's really, really good is they have a nice template for a business plan. So first off, think about how much you need to get going, short term. But you know, as an entrepreneur, you shouldn't be thinking about the first 120 days. You should be thinking about the first 5 years and what it's going to take you long term to manage that business successfully for that 5-year period. I deal with a lot of people who are in business today, but they don't generate enough money to pay themselves. And that's no fun. So as you build out your business plan, make sure you're paying yourself. That is, you know, a key to keeping yourself going, you know, sustaining your family, and all of those types of things are going to be important for you long term. So you got to figure out a way to pay for yourself, or really you're just spinning your wheels. Let's take the next slide. Let's see. Okay, so your thought process. I hit on how much you need, which is really, really important because you can't really start to build your plan until you figure out how much you need short term. Think about how much you need to finance or how much you need to raise from friends and families or from a crowd fund or borrowing. Traditionally, African Americans and Latinos have traditionally financed their businesses through credit cards. Um, Most of you guys, I'm an older guy, but most of you guys, Robert Townsend was a filmmaker. He still is a filmmaker who financed his first film with his credit card. He took $100,000 off his credit cards and financed his first film and made several $1,000,000 on that effort, which ultimately launched him. That's consistent for us. Allowing, and probably the most important bullet is the third one, allowing contingency for unexpected problems. As a business person, and I can tell you guys this because I actually did launch a business that failed a few years ago. You got to plan for things going wrong because things are going to go wrong. I mean, you think about the number of businesses that started their businesses up, and I deal with them on a daily basis in October, November, December of 2019, and then January, February of 2020. And then you get hit with the pandemic with no plans for anything like that ever happening because in our lifetimes, nothing like that has ever happened. So think about your approach to business and your approach to financing it with some thoughts in your head about what could go wrong and plan for it and try to plan around it. And then arrange all of your financing to meet those needs. Meet your short-term needs, start to build a base for meeting your long-term needs, and then anything that can go wrong. And the go wrong piece means that you should be setting aside a certain amount of money, a certain percentage of money on a monthly basis out of your revenues, just in case something happens, that you'll have something to fall back on. Let's hit the next slide. Just kind of figuring out, what your forecasts look like. Figure out, what your revenue estimates are. Try to be realistic or conservative on revenue estimates. Be a little more aggressive on expenses because that's where you can create, the spread you need to ultimately make money. Figure out what your capital costs are. What is it going to cost you to buy goods? What is it going to cost you to produce the goods that you're going to try to sell? We've worked with a lot of coffee shops, and you'd be surprised how expensive it is to run a coffee shop. The guys who are really, really good at it have figured out, what those capital costs are to help them to get those businesses off the ground. And capital costs include, your leasehold improvements, because, in most cases, unless you can cut a great deal with a landlord, you got to pay for those improvements. And it includes all of your equipment. So think about all of the things that add up to you launching your business and getting it off the ground. And again, the third bullet is interesting. It's consistent on both slides. Plan for everything that can go wrong because at some point something will. Next slide. Oh, you threw me, Kenny. So we're in LA. We're in LA County. And if you look at LA County, we are the center of the universe for business starts for the United States. LA, as in general, is the most important small business market in the country. We have more small businesses operating in LA than anywhere else in the United States, including New York City, where Manhattan sits. So, as you think about your business and think about your approach to your business, a lot of cases, businesses are spending a lot more money than they earn for the first few years. What you want to do as a business person is think about how to close that gap to the point that you are making a profit within a short period of time. And I go back to my statement earlier, we're in the top 10 in Los Angeles County in business starts across the country, but we're also in the top 10 in the country in business failures. So this slide kind of goes to that, figuring out how to close the gap, trying to manage your money in a different way, looking at expenses in a way that you are managing those things, managing your investments in a way that allows you to get to the point that you can make money. And look for the tools that are out there that you can connect with and help you to do that. So there are numbers of organizations across Los Angeles that are focused on technical assistance for small businesses. The SBDC at the school is one. I run the Women's Business Center in the San Fernando Valley, which is also an SBA sanctioned organization. But really scattered across LA, there are technical assistance organizations that have software programs and things of that nature that can help you to really get over that hump. Seasonal businesses are something that, you may be a person who is focused on the Christmas season every year. In 2020, we really didn't have a normal Christmas season, but if you're a seasonal business where you're an ice cream shop, where you're selling more of your goods in the summertime than in the winter and fall, think about how you're balancing your business in a way that it meets the seasonality of your client base and when your client base is buying the goods that they need. Think about e-commerce. I heard Yoon talk about next week, you're going to talk about e-commerce. A lot of young people today are going to e-commerce platforms to sell their goods. So, having your plan in place and delivering on that plan is so key. And I'll make this statement before we go to the next slide. For the most part, if you're going to a banker or going to an investment house or going to an angel investor, you would be required to come up with a sketch of a business plan and actually a real business plan. But for the most part, like 80% of the people who create a business plan, they create it and it just sits on a shelf. They don't actually use it to help them manage their business. So I really challenge you to take the time to look at it because it forces you to take the steps that you need to be ready for financing or to be ready to make your business successful long term. Next slide.
Hey Q, before we go to the next, your combo's sparking some good questions here, man. So we'll pop in a couple. Let's pop in a couple.
Sure.
Yeah,
I'd love for this to be interactive, and I'm not just looking at slides and talking. So as you guys come up with questions, just throw them at me, and we'll try to get them answered.
All right. So here's the first one, and this one is: since there is money available to start businesses, is there also money available for emergency type situations as well? For example, if I didn't prepare for an expense ahead of time, is there aid for that?
Not really, but that's kind of a two-edged answer. And I'll use the pandemic as an example. The SBA is putting so much money on the street now, it's unbelievable. And it's the cheapest money available, maybe in the history of America for small businesses. So if you started your business and you kept good records and you filed your taxes and things of that nature, in this environment, you would go to the SBA. And the loan is called an EIDL, Emergency Injury Disaster Loan. You could actually go to that fund and get something as little as $10,000. And I just got somebody approved for $680,000 a couple of weeks ago. So that is, pandemic financing. Outside of that, though, there isn't really anything. If you're going to get bank financing, no. Depending on the amount of financing you need and what it's for, you can probably craft something to get you the help that you need through, one of the smaller organizations. It won't be a grant though; it'll be debt. But you could probably, if it's 10,000 or 20,000 or whatever, you do a crowdfund, or you could do a Kiva loan, or there are a number of things that you could do to make it happen. Right now, the Jewish Free Loan Fund, and you guys, write that down, Jewish Free Loan Fund is giving $10,000 loans for people who are looking to get into business. So, if you got a business prospect or you're thinking about launching a business and it may cost you $25,000 to get everything you need to get you through the first year, you could actually go out and actually create something with a number of organizations to get you to that $25,000 bogey to get you going.
Thank you, Q. And I'm gonna ask one more before we move on. But real quick, you mentioned that this is the cheapest money maybe in the history of America.
Right.
By cheap, either means money you don't have to pay back or low interest. Or
Well,
there other components to that statement?
You do have to pay it back. So it is a loan. And it's 30 years. So you can stretch it out over 30 years. And the interest rate is 3.74. So, there hasn't in the history of this country been business loan rates at 3.74 ever. So when I say, the money's cheap, it is. And because the money's cheap, if you stretch it out over 30 years, you're going to get a lower payment. So, that's not going to hurt your expenses that much if you go out and borrow 50,000 or borrow 100,000 for that matter. That monthly payment isn't going to be something that's going to be debilitating to you or your business because you actually have cheap money. We call it, as bankers, we call it the cost of funds, but it's money that's cheap and it just gets you going. I just saw somebody ask a question.
Yeah, we got a couple. I'm gonna ask one more, then we'll move on, and then we'll leave a ton of time at the end, or at least enough time to ask all the questions you guys are asking. These are great questions, by the way. Thank you guys so much. Yolanda says, I just received my LLC for my new business. I still have more planning to do. My question is, since the PPP loan is not given to small businesses that started after December 2020, are there other startup business grants? I don't qualify for a credit card, but I did save $2,000 for my business. So any help there?
Not grants, not grants for startups. We just finished the California Relief Grant. They just finished the last round of that. I'm expecting there to be more rounds of the relief grant because California had a surplus. So just kind of keep your eyes out for that. That's competitive. And the decision making is done by an algorithm, but it's grant money. There are a number of grant programs across LA. LA LISC is one, LISC. The Local Initiative Support Corporation is one. You can look at their programming. And then you can look at some of the smaller organizations. LA Urban League has a grant program. Vermont Slauson, EDC has a grant program. There are a number of grant programs that are just scattered across LA. And if you actually got started early enough in 2020, you possibly could qualify for something. But as a person that's coming into 2020, you're only looking at 5,000 to 10,000. But 5,000 to 10,000 is maybe enough to get you to where you need to be.
All right, perfect. Thank you. Man, lots more questions, good questions. I see the Q&A feature being used. I saw a raised hand. We're going to try to get to it all. So Q, I'm going to go to the next slide, but we'll keep in mind those questions that are coming in.
Yeah, let's do this, Kenny. Let's skip this slide. I want to get to just talking about financing the business. Let's skip that one. Let's talk here. So these are sources of startup funding. Banks, just kind of take banks out of the conversation because for the most part, banks aren't doing startup funding for new businesses. What you could do though is if your credit score is upwards of 700, you could go to a bank and get a business credit card. But you have to have gone through all of the things to make your the entire process to make your business a legal business, whether you are doing a DBA as a sole proprietor or you're setting up a corporation. You could actually do that. So banks, American Express, there are a number of others who are you can get some startup funding in the form of a credit card. CDFIs are community lenders. The CDFI means Community Development Financial Institution. They're community lenders that are set up to do things that banks can't do. And most of them have a process for lending to startups. So you would get into something that would be called a microloan. So, anywhere from $5,000 to $50,000 in a microloan to get yourself going. On the high end of that, you got to have a tight business plan with tight projections and a concept that you can sell to some of these guys that they can get their arms around it and be your partner and help you to get to where you're going. What I don't have on here is angel investors. Angels are interesting from the standpoint of they're wealthy individuals who are looking to invest in a small business or a business in general, and they pool their money to make those investments. So you can get as little as 25,000 and as much as $1 million in some cases by going to an angel investor. What they like is a concept that's completely built out. If you have a product that you're selling, they're going to want to see real prototypes and things of that nature. If you're a technology company or if you have a technology platform, they're going to want to see something that you're bringing to the table that makes them comfortable that the money that they're investing in you, they're going to get back. They're going to take an equity position in your company. Some people, as they're starting out, don't want to give up equity, but an angel investor will get in equity position in your company. Crowdfunding is, I think, the wave of the future for small companies that are starting up in underrepresented communities. Crowdfunding is interesting in my view because you're basically going to your network to generate the funding you need to get started. We are working with people now who have crowdfunding. I'm actually scholarshiping people through a crowdfunding process as we speak. So, if you need $5,000 to $25,000 to get your business started, crowdfunding would be a nice way to do that. And you don't have to go out and get a business loan. You don't have to go out and have to deal with a CDFI or bank or a bank credit card or anything like that. You just go through, building your fund, your initiative, launching it, following up, and making it happen. There's another organization called Kiva, K-I-V-A. Crowdfunding is a part of Kiva. So say you need 20,000 to get your business started, and you want to use crowdfunding as a way of doing that. If you went through the Kiva process, you would have to raise 10,000 of it, or you'd set a target of how much you raise in a crowdfunding. And I'm going to use 10,000 just as an example. So you raise your 10,000 in the Kiva crowdfunding, and then you'll go to the Kiva organization for the additional 10,000, and you get that additional 10,000 at 0%. So again, cheap money. You get it at 0%. They won't stretch it out for 30 years, but it's, you don't get any cheaper than 0%. I talked about credit cards, during the bank piece. Investment companies will look at you, but they're more interested in growth stage businesses. And investment companies is going to be more the venture capital types who are going to take, 30, 40, 50% of your operation, and which their investment gives them a level of control as well. If you have a board of directors, they're going to put people on your board. And all of those things that, in my view, for a small business are, just additional headaches that that you'd have to go through. Excuse me 1 minute. Kenny, I can't see the bottom of the slide, so I don't know what's there. Can you raise it up a little bit?
Yeah, it just says, like the bottom of the slide says, investment as well as government grants
Right.
at the bottom of the slide. Yep.
Yeah. So government grants, I do want to get into, because depending on what you're doing, there is opportunities to get government grants. But for the most part, you have to be producing a product. Um, so, if you're producing something that's medical, that the government can benefit from, you can do that. Tesla, as an example, Tesla used government grants really as the foundational pieces of how he built the auto company. So, it's typically tied to creating a product that Americans would benefit from. And there's a lot of medical devices and things of that nature that are online now that the government's invested in. Initially, a lot of the investment in solar energy came from the government. So just depends on what you're trying to do. They're not gonna give you a grant for, your typical restaurant or your typical mom and pop, neighborhood business. But if you're thinking broader and thinking about, creating a medical device or, even doing drug research and things of that nature, there are government grants out there that you can go. Let's go to the next slide. Let's see what's on the next one.
All right, cool. Did you want to tackle a quick question?
Sure.
I got a question from Viola. She says, hello, can a business be successful without a loan?
Viola, yeah, you could. It just all depends on how you're managing it, and if you can raise enough money to get started through a crowdfunding or something like that. There are wealthy people that they can get money from their mom and dad to start their business, and they don't really care whether it's successful. They just kind of do their thing. Most entrepreneurs are people who are driven to do something different. And if you can find a way to fund that initial cost and your passion carries you in a way that you can make it successful, yeah, you could make a business successful without a loan. But in my view, you'd have to fall back on, the crowdfunding pieces of things like that, just to cover the unexpecteds. And again, there's always something that happens that's unexpected.
All right, we got one more, and then one or two more. These might be quick. So exactly how do you apply for a PPP loan? There's so many websites.
Great question. You know what? I would go out and try to find a reputable lender. We have some that we work with here, and I don't want to advertise for anyone. The big banks are all PPP lenders, but for the most part, they're focused on their existing customers. So CDFIs is highlighted in the first bullet here. Most CDFIs are PPP lenders as well. So you can just Google local CDFIs, and it'll pop up. There are 23 in Los Angeles. Of the 23, I'm not sure if all of them are making PPP loans, but some of them are. So, for you, figuring out what your expenses are, primarily what you're losing from payroll. So what you're paying yourself, and that goes back to what I said earlier, you got to pay yourself. So I've had people who miss getting PPP loans because they were paying their employees, but they weren't paying themselves. So you gotta figure out a way to, as a part of this equation, pay yourself. The other piece of that too is, they're using your IRS tax records to validate you are who you are. So a lot of business owners don't want to show in their taxes enough profit for it to make sense for a bank or a CDFI or anyone to give them a loan. So in my view, banks are cash flow lenders, or anybody who's lending money is a cash flow lender. They're going to see that the business is cash flow. Even if you went out to an investment company or venture capitalist If you're not showing enough money that your business cash flows, you're basically gonna hit a wall. So, and I said all of that to say, as you look at your business and figure out what you're doing and how you're doing it, and if you want to grow it, and part of that growth, may include financing, you got to pay some taxes, and you got to create a presentation to that lender that shows you can afford to pay them back. And at the end of the day, all they want to do is get paid back. They don't want to, they don't want to be chasing you. They don't want your collateral. They don't want any of that. They just want to get paid back. So if you can create that in your financial statements, that's really the first step. When I look at a deal today, if it doesn't cash flow, I just move on to the next thing. That's what most bankers do. And that's what I was trained to do. So, kind of think about, the tax piece. And, if it causes you to have to pay some taxes, pay the taxes, because at some point you will need financing for your business to help it to grow. And I would want you to be able to take advantage of everything that's out there. And there's a lot out there right now that would be supportive of your business, but you don't get that opportunity if it's not cash flow. Why don't we take one more question?
One more, yeah. We got one more in the Q&A here. So how do you survive making less than you produce? How do you survive making less than you produce? And I'm assuming that's for business. I'm not sure if I
understand the question.
How would you survive making it? So, well, if Jeremy, if you don't mind, I know you spend more than you make.
You don't. If you're spending more than you make, you ultimately end up in bankruptcy. I'm saying that in the United States government spends more than we bring in on a yearly basis, but we also create money, and that's what allows us to do it. You don't. So you gotta at some point balance that out and live off a budget and all of those types of things as an individual. But also as a business owner. And I'll give you an example. A few years ago, I got recruited into doing something that I never should have done, but organization was in terrible trouble. And I went in as a CEO for 6 months. First thing that I did when I got there was looked at how many days cash we had as a business. So if you Google days cash, you'll get an equation for that problem. But ultimately, days cash is taking your run rate of your revenues, what you got on hand, with how much money you're spending on a daily basis to keep the doors open. And when I got there, I think we had like 3 days cash. And they didn't tell me that in the interview process. So we were spending on a daily basis a lot more than we were bringing in. And, during the 6 months that I was there, the one thing that I'm proud of is we took days cash from 3 days to right at 2 years. So, but that meant a lot of cuts. It meant shifting gears, and we actually went out and bought software to do work that people were doing. So that meant we had to lay people off and all of that stuff. So, to answer your question in a long and roundabout way, you can't survive that way, and you definitely can't survive that way in running a business. So, really think about focusing on budgeting, and I'll tell you this, even on an individual level, kind of thinking about how much cash you have, how much you should be saving and things of that nature, can be life-changing for you, in my view.
All right, and so even with that question on loss, maybe there might be a temporary loss, but I guess long-term, because I know they say, Jeremy just mentioned, that his business they might lose the first 2 to 3 years, but hope to turn that around, afterwards. So.
Yeah, and a lot of businesses lose money the first year. So, you know, the most important thing in managing that is knowing that you're on a trajectory to make money at some point. So that calculation that I just talked about is a part of that. But, you know, you should be able to look at what you're bringing in, even if you're a seasonal business, and how much money you're spending on expenses, and figure out, you know, if you're 90 days away of just breaking even, or if you're 120 days away. Once you break even and you figured that piece out, you know, the sky's the limit down the road after that, because you basically gotten over all of the hurdles that you need to you know to accomplish to get yourself to the point that you are making money. I see businesses that start. There's a coffee shop in South Central right now. Great location, amazing facility. They made money within the first 10 months. They lost money for 9 months. On month 10, they broke even and they actually made real money. So, you know, we can teach in the SBDC at the college can teach you, you know, break even points and things of that nature, and how to manage that kind of way of running your business. And you can ultimately, if you're running it and you're staying close to the financials and close to what you're bringing in and basically putting out, it's actually a pretty simple transaction. We kind of hit determining short term. You know, if you're going to borrow short term, for the most part, startup businesses aren't going to be able to go out and get a line of credit. Startup businesses can go out and get a credit card, but you know, you're looking at 5, 10, you know, possibly 15,000. So, you know, for some small businesses, that's enough to sustain you. In the past, you could actually go out and get a loan and pay interest only. Most banks today or CDFIs don't even have a program to do that. And I'm going to use this slide to shift gears a little bit. There are a number of predatory lenders out there. You know, if you drive around listening to your radio, they're advertising, you know, they can get you a small business loan, you know, within 24 hours and it's this amount and all of that. Steer clear of all of those. Because the most part, they're taking advantage of people. I have a client who has been in business for 30 years. She hit a snag on her business. She takes credit cards. She went out and got $1 million loan with a merchant credit card funder at 29%. And when she signed the dotted line, they basically took over her bank accounts, and everything that she brought in, they took until they got their $1 million back. So, you know, I say steer clear of them in a just kind of general statement, and in general, steer clear of them, because they are out there taking advantage of you. Back to the SBDCs, back to the women's business centers, then the number of people in organizations, for the most part, who are nonprofit, who are providing technical assistance services across Los Angeles. You'll have somebody that you can go to and get a counseling session for free. You don't have to pay anybody for it. You just make the appointment and you get that counseling session. I would prefer you do that. Before we leave, I'm gonna put my phone number in the chat, that if anyone needs to reach out, if they have questions or anything like that, you can do that. Kenny just put the WBC in there. If you go into the WBC website, there'll be a pop-up that will allow you to make an appointment with someone if you have an issue, or if you have something you want to talk through, or whatever. The SBA pays us to do this, so it's no charge to you, and take advantage of it. The other thing is, for the most part, all of the nonprofits that are in LA that are offering services are supported by banks or foundations or the federal government, for that matter. So you don't have to pay for those services when you reach out to get a counseling or anything else of that nature. So, but what I see across the board, not just with us, but everyone, is people don't take enough advantage of it. So I spend a good 50% of my time talking to people about, what their challenge is and how we can help them or how we can refer them to somebody. I should be spending 90% of it. So, just think about the services that are out there that are free. I like the word free. So take advantage of the stuff that you don't have to pay for. Business planning, as an example. We use Live Plan here. If you were going out and buying a Live Plan license to build your business plan, you spend about $2,000. You could come in here and get a Live Plan license for free. The only challenge is you have to finish your business plan within 30 days. So that allows us to push you to get that business plan completed, but you don't have to pay for it. And I can put as many people through it as I want, and Life Plan won't make a whole lot of noise. So you don't have to pay for it. The other thing is networking. Finding people that you can network with who are like thinkers. So anybody that's in business for themselves is going to be thinking about things probably similar to you. Find a way to network with them. Try to find some guys that are younger than you, who have a lot of energy and a lot of ideas, and then go out and try to find some old guys like me, who are going to be careful and conservative. And I think you can form your ideas about what you do and how you do your business with balancing out the two. You can be aggressive on one side and conservative on the other, or just be right down the middle. And that gives you a chance to be successful at running your business. Kenny, why don't we just, I know we just got a few more minutes. Why don't we just finish this up with taking questions?
Okay. All right. So was there any other slide here that you wanted to make mention of, or we can go to
No,
Q&A?
I think I hit all of the high points that I wanted to get to. I will get into this. Crowdfunding, I think, is going to be something specifically for Black and Brown and Asian communities across LA County. I think that's going to be something that's going to be a bigger opportunity for us in the future. We got 47 people on the line right now. So anyone that's interested in going through a crowdfunding process that you don't have to pay for, I'm going to scholarship you, reach out to me. And if I get enough people, I'd like to do a minimum of 10. But if I get 10 people who are interested in going through a crowdfunding process, I'll pay for it. And you get that service for free. There's some work on your end. So I can't tell you that it's easy, because it's not. There's some work on your end, but if you do that work, that's actually going to set you up to raise the initial money that you need without going to anybody. And then second to that, we haven't announced it yet, but my organization just took over Kiva for Los Angeles. So once you finish that crowdfund, we would have money to make that initial investment in your company, because you finished that crowdfund. So I'm doing this for selfish reasons, because I want to make both successful, but also want to help people. So if you're interested, just reach out to me, and we'll get you going.
All right, we'll make sure. Q, that's huge. Kiva LA. Oh man, I didn't. That's news for me too, man. So
yeah,
congrats on that.
Yeah, we'll be doing a press release next week, and we built our landing page and all of that already, and it all looks good, and we'll be ready to roll on June 1st.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you, Q. That was amazing. Let's keep rolling and get as many questions in as possible. You definitely got a good amount here, but definitely want to shout out Connie too, from the Network for Teaching Entrepreneurship, helping us out, managing some of the chat and Q&A today as well. So we have a question here from Sophie that says, does the government track what businesses spend on their grants?
Yes, that's cool. In ways that you wouldn't believe. So we have a government grant for the Women's Business Center. They measure everything. And if you're going for a government grant, you're going to basically give them a plan up front of what you're going to use their money for. If you decide that you want to deviate from that plan, you have to go to the government before you deviate and get approval. And if they don't like what you decide that you're going to use their money for, they're not going to allow you to do it. So it's pretty interesting the way that it works. There are lots of hoops to go through. They're typically quarterly audits. So, and when I say quarterly, that's, that's every 3 months. We go through a short audit, and then annually we go through a longer one. So far it's been painless. When we've had to shift gears, we've actually gone out and gotten permission to do the things that we wanted to do. They haven't turned us down yet on anything that we wanted to do, and it's working. It's working. But yeah, if you're gonna get government money or government grants, you're gonna have to stick to whatever plan you agreed to when they decided that it was okay to give you the money.
Yeah, I know about those government grants too, man.
Yeah.
Orlando, he asked, what do you recommend to work on if paying yourself is very difficult at the moment?
You gotta find a way, Orlando, to. So I don't know if you got employees. So if you generate enough money to pay your employees, then you probably should not have employees and be trying to deliver their service on your own until you grow the business to the point that you can afford to pay employees. Running a business without paying yourself is just challenging to me. And most of the businesses that fail are ones that, owners got a great idea, in some cases, a great product, but they're putting so much into the business that they're not paying themselves, and that's a different level of stress that I don't think you should have to go through. And I think if you can figure out a way to pay yourself, that ultimately allows you to figure out a way to grow it. And if you stack those steps all together, that means, if you're growing it, you can hire employees. Your employees is going to help you to increase your customer base, which ultimately brings additional employees. And that's the cycle that I would like to see people in, as opposed to having a great idea, putting everything that I generate back into the business and not paying themselves. I actually ran a business for a couple years. I ran a marijuana business actually, that did extremely well for about a year, and I wasn't paying myself, which is interesting. I was reinvesting in product and paying my employees a lot. So we fail more because of lawsuits and governments being inconsistent. But what I learned from that experience was I should have been paying myself and not running the business in that way. So I encourage everyone on the line to figure out a way, if you're going to be in business, figure out a way to pay yourself.
This is helpful, Q, because a lot of the businesses possibly are in that micro business lane, just getting off the ground, figuring out some good startup strategies for them. So this next question says, from a financial standpoint, starting out, is it a better idea to have a team or to be as hands-on as possible, but solo?
Kenny, that's probably a better question for you. You teach the class. I have some opinions. Having a team is great as long as you can get along, and as long as you can create a vision that everybody can get their arms around and agree upon. And if you can't do that, then there's always going to be friction, and there's never going to be any consistency in what you're delivering. There are a couple books out there. One's Lean Startup that just kind of taught, and you guys may have read it. It kind of talks about getting started in your business with the least amount of everything possible. And that's just kind of a short version of what the book talks about. It's kind of the business, it has been for probably the last year, one of the top business books in the country. I'm sitting in a room right now with a book called The Evolution of the Entrepreneur. What you'll find in reading books is you'll get opinions from all over the place. At the end of the day, you got to figure out what works for you and what fits your personality and what fits your idea of growing that business. And once you come up with something that you're comfortable with as an individual, whether that means you go out and recruit a team or you start out doing it all on your own, because you've decided and you're comfortable with it, and you're putting your energies in it, you're going to actually have a better chance of being successful than if you went out and you were trying to do what the team wanted you to do, because they're going to be all over the place. You're going to have a better shot. If once you get comfortable with whatever the idea is, you're going to have a better shot at being successful.
All right, awesome. Thanks, Q. So another question from Jeremy. Is there a general rule of thumb that says when to close down and cut your losses?
Most people, good question, Jeremy. Most people don't. If you're an entrepreneur, you're passionate about, what you're trying, and most people don't want to fail. So closing down, for most people would be a sign of failure. Take this with you, because it's important, I think. I bank some of the most successful entrepreneurs in the country over the years. One I think about the most is probably Barry Gordy, but there are others. I mean, I bank people who actually built products and things for a space shuttle years ago. Most successful business people have failed 4 times. So think about that. So, but you hear the identification serial entrepreneur. That's just people who've tried things and they fail. I work with a guy here that has built 4 technology companies and sold them, and it's extremely wealthy. But he failed several times before he hit on one that was successful. And what's interesting is after their first one that was successful, he learned from those experiences where he failed, but he also learned from that experience where he was successful. And if you match the two together, all of the mistakes that he made and the failures, he wasn't making them anymore. And all of the positives that he made in the successful one allowed him to go out and build several other businesses that he ultimately sold. So don't be afraid of failure. Decide what your threshold is for losses. And if you don't see a line of sight at some point of getting your idea to the point that it does make money, I'd say cut your losses, figure out the next thing that you're going to go for. Because most entrepreneurs will go for something else. At some point, they'll get to the point that they'll go for something else.
Right. Thank you. And a lot of great information is being said and a lot of resources, a lot of links. So again, I want to encourage you guys, we are recording this. This will be reposted by El Camino College. Yoon, I guess, I'm not sure exactly the platform, but it will be reposted. We'll make sure that we have your email. So we'll send that out. But Yoon, when will this be reposted? I know that you may.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, Quentin. That's some great advice, some good wisdom, and some resources too. I hope our students and our community go out and take advantage of this, especially what you were offering too, with the funding, right? That's go get the money, right? I mean,
Sure.
I started a couple of businesses, and funding is one of the toughest parts. But to go to Kenny's point, the Entrepreneurial Studies program here at El Camino will be launching a website with all the different resources out there. This will be one of those resources. This the recording here of this program, as well as next week's program. So look out for that. We have your emails. Make sure you registered. If once you registered, we have your email. We'll be emailing you out the link, so you can go ahead and watch this again at your own time, and in case you missed anything or want to review. Okay, so we're really excited about that. That website should be coming out in a couple of weeks, and we'll keep you posted.
Perfect. Thank you. All right, awesome. Thank you. So in Q, we'll do some popcorn questions right now. We'll try to get through as many questions as possible here. So we have another one from, excuse me if I say the name of Salam. Do you have any tips for figuring out how much space you will need for your business?
No. I think that all depends on what you're selling. And you guys have heard the old adage, location, location, location. So typically the best locations are the most expensive. If you can deliver that business without spending a ton of money on location, do it. Try to find something adjacent to, the hot location. And if you have a product that's a hot product, they're going to come to you if you're close enough. But I don't have an equation for what you would need from a space standpoint. Just figure out what you're selling, figure out what you think your volumes will look out, and then plan for your space accordingly.
All right, awesome. And to verify, the name of the book, Q, is actually The Evolution of an Entrepreneur, right?
Right.
That you made mention before.
Right. I have a lot of them. I have 30 cases of them. So if you guys send me an email, I'll drop it in the mail to you.
So Q, do you mind putting your email in the chat just so that they can have your email?
Yeah.
I want to make sure they get your email there. Thank you. And if you have a few more, we got a couple more minutes, time for a few more questions. I want to share some resources with you as well. So before we close out our webinar today, but if you have a couple more questions for Quentin, please feel free to ask your questions.
Okay, just put it in the chat, guys.
All right. Thank you, Quentin. All right, lots of great information. I mean, from from the crowdsourcing, opportunity where someone can contact you if they're interested. To Kiva, ending with the Kiva opportunity, to getting help with our businesses individually by contacting New Economics for Women and the Women's Business Center. And FYI, the name says Women's Business Center, New Economics for Women, but it's for men too. So right. So for sure. So it's men and women, lots of entrepreneurs getting support and help from that angle. All right, we got another question here. Let me just make sure I didn't, Orlando, can I start a cannabis business from my home?
You have to check the laws on that. I'm not sure.
All right.
I'm not sure. If you're in LA, it's the Department of Cannabis Services, I think. And they'll have, and actually you can pull it up online. If you're growing plants, I think you're limited to the number of plants that you can grow, and there's a licensing process that you have to go through. But I'm totally disengaged from that business, so I couldn't.
Times have changed, right? Like that we could even have that question, asked now, right? Because of just where everything's going. So pretty interesting. All right, so my business is creating balloon arts, garland columns, centerpieces, and more. Because of many balloon structures, I will need a can for business purpose. Should I see if I can get a business loan for vehicle or just purchase one and write it as a tax write-off?
You do that.
Need a van.
I would, if you're incorporated or if you have a DBA, I would actually try to get a business loan in the name of the business. And then that makes the write-offs easier. And then there are a number of expenses, that you can write off. I mean, if you're working from home, there's, you can write off a percentage of the space that you use at home for your business. You can write off a percentage of your property tax as a percentage of using your business as a home. So there's some benefits on the tax side to to do something like that. But to just keep it clean, because you could actually go out and just buy a car and write it off. Yeah, but to keep it clean, I would try to do it in the name of the business.
All right, believe this is could be wrong. I think it's Paola. If I am in a competitive beauty industry, I am certified lash tech. How can I lower my capital costs to receive more profit? Any tips?
So you do eyelashes. Your lowering your cost means you got to buy your product at a lower rate. So doing your research, finding the same kind of quality, which means you may have to go outside local to make your purchases, but reducing your expense for acquisition of your cost of goods sold is the way to do that. So the more you reduce it, the more your bottom line will benefit from that. And then look at the pricing of your services. Are you in one location or are you in multiple locations? If you're in a location that's in an upscale part of the community, is your pricing the same as if you're in a location that's in an underserved community? So what I'm saying with all of that is create your pricing to fit the community where you're sitting. So if you're in an upscale community, you can charge more. And your acquisition cost of your cost of goods is the same. So, figuring out ways to price yourself in a way that allows you to maximize on your revenue opportunity, that helps you on your bottom line.
Wow. Thank you, Q. So I think that's all the questions that I've seen in the chat. All right, we got one more. This might be our last one. My team, this is from No. So my team was a part of a NASA competition, and we're working on licensing a NASA IP for a tech startup. Should we start looking for investors once we get the license or have a working prototype of our product?
Yeah, no, figure out, kind of going back to what I said earlier, figure out what it's going to take to get you through the first phase of what you want to do. For something like this, you can go to an angel investor, and they'd be interested in it because it's going to have a high potential upside. Figure out how much of the company you want to give up, and for the first round, don't give up too much. And then just build the tightest, most spectacular presentation imaginable, and you'll get people interested. You got NASA tied to this, so that's going to get people's attention. You can Google angel investors across LA County. There are probably 8 to 10 angel investor groups. They talk to each other. UCLA has a really active one. Pasadena has a really active one as well. And then there are a couple in Orange County that are pretty interesting. And there are a couple down in the Manhattan Beach, Hermosa Beach area that once you Google it, all of those will come up. But yeah, you'd have an opportunity, I think, to raise some significant money. Just figure out how much of the company in the first round you want to give up, because you'll have several rounds of having to raise money, and you don't want to give up so much in the first round that it takes away from you and your partners in the subsequent rounds.
What would be too much to give up?
Oh man,
that's No's asking that question.
Yeah, tough question, because I don't know how much you're raising. Let's think about how much you're raising and try to create a percentage of it. But I'm gonna say first round, 5 to 8%. Anything you add is going to dilute the 5 to 8%. So your angel investor is going to be cognizant of that, and they are probably going to want to first right of refusal in the subsequent rounds. But you in a program like NASA, you would have an opportunity, I think, to raise a significant amount of money.
All right. Thanks, No, for your question. Thank you, Connie, for those answers in the chat. Brenda has a quick one. This may be our last one. I'll see if I can squeeze one more in. Otherwise, they do have your email. The questions are just flowing, Q. They got a lot of questions.
Okay.
I'm trying to get in as many as possible. Brenda says, what about if I want to open a family daycare as a small business? Can I get help from the business plan resources at El Camino College? So I don't know if Q, you would answer that,
yeah. You're not a startup, but I think they would help you at El Camino College because they're more focused on growth stage. So I'd have the conversation. And if they don't, we cover all of LA County as a women's business center. So you would fit our profile perfectly, and our services are free. So, and most of everything that we're doing right now is online or in Zoom meetings. So, you know, we're offering 20 webinars a week. So there's got to be one that could help you somehow. And then we have one-on-one counseling as well. So, and the big thing is the business planning piece of all of this. You know, you could get tied into Live Plan to help you to build your business plan. So, you know, keep new WBC.org in mind because, you know, we can be a resource for you as well.
All right, this final question, because we'll have to go, is Shark Tank, are those angel investors on Shark Tank?
No, they're not. They're not angels. They're not. No, Shark Tank, they're trying to take advantage of you. It's kind of funny that that show is so popular, but it is. And there are a number of businesses that they've turned down and not invested in that have gone out and been wildly successful. So angel investors are more like investment clubs. They are wealthy individuals who are, you know, either still working or retired, who, you know, put up money to invest in businesses. And, you know, some of them are home runs and some of them they lose money on. But, you know, they are in a place in their lives where they have extra capital and they, you know, they like trying to figure out a way to help businesses. There are a number of funds now that are focused on African-American, Latino, and Asian businesses in particular. I can't give you the name of any, but you can Google. That would also be, you know, a source of maybe going out and getting some funding. You know, as you guys are growing out of El Camino, if you're going to go to a local university like USC or UCLA, you know, they have capital funds where they invest in businesses that are started at, you know, for their students. So, you know, if you know, if your net is wide enough, you know, there may be an opportunity for you to go out and get some easy capital to help to support you.
All right, Q, I feel like we need another hour or two, man. So many questions, but what's cool, I know some people said they might have missed your email. Connie, if you don't mind. Oh, okay, Quentin, yep, he'll put it in again. And that's the best way to contact you, Q, through the email there?
Yeah.
All right, so you can feel free to contact Q there. And then, you know, you got the, you know, we gave the website as well to the Women's Business Center that can provide you with additional resources also. We gave a little short survey for you to fill out to help us out. Let us know how we did today. It'll be really helpful for us to see that. And then also just so you can see it, at El Camino College, you might say, hey, I've got more, you know, someone asks, hey, can El Camino College help me in more ways than one, right? And so coming up, Yoon, feel free to elaborate more if you'd like on these course offerings. These are course offerings coming up at El Camino College where you can go learn the ins and outs of owning a small business and really, really dive deeper in that as well. So here's the information there. What's the best way for them to get this flyer, Yoon? Is this going to be posted somewhat for them to get it? Okay.
Right. We'll contact you. We'll reach out to you on email. But you can go to the El Camino El Camino EDU, right? To basically look under the business division and entrepreneurship. So the classes are there. We have a entrepreneurship class that teaches you basically the ins and outs of starting and running a business, as well as a venture development class that helps you put together a business plan. So both classes, as well as the accounting for small business and also general ed business classes as well, to give you a broad idea of business as well too. So a lot of resources there. One thing I want to encourage as well for the students out there is that get the classes, but also take advantage of everything out there. Whether it's the small business centers, the things that Quentin mentioned and his opportunities, because you can't just go with one, go with as many as possible, because you're going to learn a lot and you're going to network with a lot of different people. So we're not here to say only go for one particular program or the other. You go for all of it that you can, right? And that's what we're trying to do here at El Camino, give you the as broad of a universe as possible of opportunities. So definitely look out for that. The classes are there. We're also coming up with industry groups as well at El Camino. And also, as I mentioned, the website resource, so we can stay in touch and also collaborate there as well as a community. Whether you're at El Camino or you transfer on to your 4-year or you start your own business after that, we're around.
Awesome. And I just put a video in about that a little bit more, just kind of showcasing more of those opportunities, just in general, in terms of the support that El Camino College can give you as you are on your startup journey, launch journey. That's the title, startup to launch, startup and launch, right? To get going. So time has eluded us. I know that we've come to the end of our webinar today, but you've got a lot of resources. This video will be available. You can contact Quentin. You can contact Yoon and Melissa in El Camino College for more resources. And we provided a resource early on that you can take advantage of as well. So we're very appreciative of our time today. Had a great time. Q, thank you again. Any last parting words before we sign off?
No, thanks guys for giving me the opportunity to talk to you guys. If you want to reach out and have questions, just reach out to me, and I promise to follow up and do what we can to help.
All right, thank you again. That survey's in the link in the chat. Your survey results help us to keep these and other workshops going here at El Camino College. So thanks everybody. Had a great time. We'll follow up with those resources. Thanks a lot. Have a phenomenal week.
Thanks guys.
Bye. Thanks.